Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Latched podcast. Melissa and Lindy here. It is officially World Breastfeeding Month. It is August. We are here. We've made it almost through the summer. A little bit of a hot mess at Latched Mama in terms of World Breastfeeding Month this year. Still feeling the effects of COVID. Still trying to really get things back running on a organized basis. But we have some really, really fun stuff happening this month. We have new releases happening every Monday. We have awesome after hours deals every Wednesday. We have free shipping every Saturday in August. And then the last week from Wednesday to Tuesday, which I think is like the 23rd through the 31st. We are doing our big World Breastfeeding Week tiered sale, World Breastfeeding Month tiered sale, I guess is what we have to say now. So it's a really, really exciting month at Latched Mama, including Tuesdays. We're releasing podcasts all week or all month. So here we are.
Yay.
This Tuesday, we are talking to you guys about the most asked breastfeeding questions that we get as a company. What a lot of people don't know at Latched Mama is that we have a pretty significant staff of certified lactation counselors. We try and take anybody who is front facing to customers and get them through that program and get them through that training. So at any given point, if you all have any lactation questions at all, we're not just here to sell you clothes and give you confidence and make your life easier. We're actually here to support you and encourage you and help with something that can sometimes be a little tricky. You're listening to the Latched Mama podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Wirt, business owner and tired mom of 5. Join us each week as we talk about pregnancy, nursing, parenting, and all things motherhood. So we are going to go through our list of questions that we get all of the time. So kind of breastfeeding 101 a little bit. Some of them are a little bit more advanced. And really kind of start with the basics of some situations that can pop up when we breastfeed.
Yeah.
Sounds
good.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you want to start?
Yeah. Okay. So we have 7 questions we're going to try to hit today. Okay. So question number 1 is, how can new moms best set themselves up for breastfeeding success?
Wow. That's a big one.
That is a very big one.
So on top of being CLCs, for those of you who don't know, Lindy and I have 11 kids combined, soon to be 12. So we're going to use some anecdotal examples. We're going to use some of our training and some of our information here, but I don't think anything ever beats real life examples and real life experience. And, I think having gone through the process so many times at this point, we have a lot of stuff to pull from. But, before I had my first child, I had really good midwifery care. And I think that's where it starts. It starts with a really, really good care provider, in my opinion. I think you can take the training. I think you can find the classes. But I think having a supportive care provider and expressing the fact that you would like to breastfeed, I think is the first step. I also love the idea of educating your partner, making sure that they know that it's important to you as well. A lot of hospitals have free classes, so look into those there. There are a lot of online resources, especially post-COVID, which I think has been an amazing change. Some of the best breastfeeding education classes are done by doulas and IBCLCs, and a lot of them have had to take their in-person classes and turn them online, which is fantastic because you have the opportunity to access them no matter where you are. Anything you did before your first or your second?
I just wasn't educated. I thought I was educated, but I wasn't really educated. So yes, I think the classes, I think learning more about your body. I mean, like we talk about those questions that people see that, a lot might be surprised that people didn't know about, whether it's birth or breastfeeding or whatnot, but really like kind of body basics, like how that works.
Yeah.
I really wish I'd knew like how milk works, how it's going to come out, how like
absolutely
how that works.
It's like the teenagers who work at Latch Mama that have
Yeah.
no idea how their cycle works.
No
And like
idea.
literally
And I mean,
we
I
have
was
like
there.
cycle 101 with them and
Yeah.
just say, hi, this is how your body works.
Yeah.
You know, really truly learning about the mechanics of breastfeeding. It's, I don't want to say it's not rocket science because you can do a deep dive, and IBCLCs are such an amazing asset. But there are so many simple things of like how it actually works. That are really great to learn, and it doesn't take you much of a time. I mean, there's you know a couple of articles you can read just about simple kind of what needs to happen, you know, to really have that great start.
Yeah. Now I know like Melissa has had her babies at home. I have had hospital births, so we're a little bit on different sides of that. And I know I did go in there not knowing to really be able to request to see an IBCLC in the hospital. Now, after that, I got to see this wonderful lady for all of my other 5 kids that I hope she comes on our podcast sometime soon. And it was wonderful. But slowly, each of those kids, I slowly learned a little bit more about the rights that I had and what I wanted to do and how to like accomplish that. But at the beginning, I do like there is somebody there to help you. They can come and see your latch, and you are definitely you have the right to have that visit and have that support.
And there are simple things that you can ask for that will set you up for success. Skin to scan immediately after birth is something that you should advocate for. If breastfeeding is important to you, it can happen after a C-section in most cases. You know, really keeping that baby on the breast as much as you can, keeping that baby close. It's really interesting. Some people, you know, I think for a long time thought that was just like, whatever, my baby can go to the nursery or whatever, but they've really dug in and really studied what that oxytocin does in terms of milk production, and how important it is to get those pathways where they need to be to actually release milk. So really keeping that baby as close as possible and on breast as much as you can. The other simple breastfeeding 101, if you don't learn anything else from this podcast and reading, is that breastfeeding works on supply and demand. The more your baby's at the breast, in most cases, if everything is working properly, the more milk you're going to make. So it's really getting that baby there, having them empty the breast as much as they can, and then having your body react to that as well.
Yeah. And I know for me, I always look at those first 2 weeks as just kind of those big production weeks and making sure that I am providing enough and making it enough. So I know every now and then I hear a friend, you know, it's like, oh, like, you know, my 3-day-old, 4-day-old, oh, they like slept through the night. And I think that's incredible and that's wonderful. But even for me, for those first 2 to 3 weeks, I made sure that we were feeding, like if they were sleeping, I was waking them up. I was waking them up every 2 hours at least. And honestly, that first week we were up all the time. But what I'm saying is I was doing it for me, for my supply, making sure that I can regulate. And after those couple weeks, you know, we would do what was needed, maybe a little bit more at night. But I do. I think it's so important to.
Yeah, we get that question a lot, though. Like, should I wake my baby up? What is this supposed to look like? Should I be feeding them? And honestly, you know, it's really done on a case by case basis with your pediatrician and your comfort level as a mom as well. You know, normally our answer is going to be whatever lowers the anxiety the most in the mom and whatever gets you to relax a little bit.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just, it's interesting. It's funny with every baby. I've really kind of grasped, especially on the last 2, how much you literally have to teach them how to nurse. And it's like your first step as a parent, and that first little lesson that you get to teach your baby is how to, you know, have that, you know, as much as people will say that they come out knowing how to breastfeed. Absolutely. There is, in most babies, there is the built-in, you know, breast crawl and, you know, finding the darkened nipple and stuff. It's really quite awesome. But really teaching them how from day one to get that deep latch.
Yeah.
And they might be a little lazy at the beginning, and really, really, from day one, teaching them and talking to them. And so some of my favorite, day 1, day 2, day 3 memories is really just watching every latch and, watching their little face, gape open and, get the whole nipple in their mouth, which is another really super important thing.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a really long time if that's how long we're going to spend on every question.
Okay,
but
ready?
I love it. I love to geek out. This is fun.
All right. Ready for number 2?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Helpful hints for how to survive those middle of the night feeds / pumps.
Learn how to side lie. Breastfeed is like my favorite one. I think that we could probably do a deep dive into safe sleep here, but I think we're going to not.
Yeah.
For the sake of drama. I have never been a middle of the night pumper, so I'm going to let you take that one. I literally hear about people doing that. My best friend from college did that, I think, with all of her children, and it literally makes me cringe. Like, the idea that you have to sit up and pump in the middle of the night is such an amazing gift, I feel like, that moms give their babies, because it's so different than actually having a baby on the breast. But
yeah,
you pumped in the middle of the night? Did you set an alarm?
I only pumped in the middle of the night so Lennox was in the NICU for a week. So that was my first kid, like first week. So that was a unique situation. And then just with my twins, I've never pumped in the middle of the night in between kids.
Okay.
And I really only pumped in the middle of the night with the twins for the first 3 weeks when we were like triple feeding, like triple figuring that out.
I just look at you and I'm like,
but
breastfeeding is so hard, but then you like do the whole twins and pumping thing.
Yeah.
Like it's,
yeah,
I don't know.
But anyway, my little middle of the night tips, and this is just for me, this is just my experience. I did nurse my little ones in bed and whatnot, but for me to feel healthy and to sleep, I went and fed them in the rocker or in a little couch, like in their room. And that was probably like after the first like 2 months. So those like little middle of the nights, like I had a tiny little night light. So I kept the dim, I kept it very low, very calm. I did have water in there. Kept it very simple. I generally changed them before I nursed in case they did not poop, and then I could put them straight back down. But inevitably, like, nursing generally fires up that gut. So we would have to change and whatnot. But it's pretty crazy. After a while, you can just do it like with no lights on. It's pretty cool, like how moms like just are able to
absolutely,
just do this. It just is becomes so natural. But the pumping thing, it really is just a pain. I mean, I had my pump parts set up. I had them cleaned. Every now and then, depending how we did it, I would be able to pump because that milk could sit out. So if I was using that for something else. And the reason that I pump with my twins is at the time I had my twins, I had 4 other kids under 6. So before those twins came, and I've done the nursing on the demand, I've done a bit of everything. I chose before they came out that they were going to be able to breastfeed, take a bottle, and a pacifier from the beginning. And that was just my choice.
Yeah.
So hence at the beginning, that is why for 2 weeks I chose to pretty much teach them. And we had to kind of do the triple to make sure that I could pump and breastfeed. So I would always nurse for 10 minutes. We were practicing because they were also 4 weeks early. So we knew this would take a few extra weeks to like nail down the nursing.
Yeah.
So we would nurse for 10 minutes and then they would kind of get a top up with what I've pumped. And then I would pump after that. So we got that down to a 1 hour process and we would pass babies off. So within 10 days, we were either able to do a full nursing session or I could do a full pump session. But as
full bottle feeding session.
Yeah, I would pump and it was a full bottle of pump milk.
Okay.
We never really did the goal was to become either or. And then it became to where most of the time I was nursing and I would just pump knowing that I could get out of the house and leave because that's what I felt kind of trapped in with the 4th child.
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool. And at night, after that, I never pumped at night. When I could stop pumping, it was all breastfeeding at night. And that was always like a really interesting...
Hold on. You would get up and you would go to where they were sleeping?
So I would go to their sleeping. If one was awake before the other, they got fed first. So I would pick them up, change them, feed them, put them back to bed, pick the other one up, feed them, change them, put them back.
So if you were awake, they were going to get food. So if one of them was awake and one of them was asleep, the one that was asleep was also going to get food
100%.
Before you went back to bed.
Yeah, and most of the time it would end up being a dream feed because I often only had one awake at one time. So they got dream fed and they went, so they fed at the same time. But that's like a whole nother, like with the multiples and stuff.
I'm like kind of shaking thinking of that responsibility.
Now, if they were both awake and crying, well, then I needed to tandem because I wasn't going to let one sit there cry for 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. So then I had to figure out how to tandem like in the dark. And one was inevitably done before the other. So you kind of had to get a burp in. You kind of had to get a burp in. And then you needed to, I had two boppies next to me. And I had to lay that one down while I finished with it. Like it was such a mechanical, process.
It's so funny because I was just talking about Carrie, who's my best friend from college, who also had twins, and she had watching her setup and watching exactly what you're saying, like the mechanical, of just 1, 2, and
it's
the
a little sad in the sense, it is very difficult. I think if you talk to multiple moms, the one thing you do miss out on is just
you still talk about that when they get sick, is you get cuddles, and you never got them.
And I never got cuddles
when they were little.
I had a couple times on the couch where I had help around that we could just sit and not move, and they were
because that's snuggling. One of the best things about breastfeeding.
Things,
I assume it happens with formula feeding too. I don't have a whole lot of reference to it, but that whole milk drunk, just sit there and that oxytocin bliss of, last podcast I was talking about how, I wasn't quite ready to have this baby, but when I think about that and just that milk drunk, love fest that happens after they eat. But I can understand with 2, it's hard to really sit and cuddle with 2, especially if you have to feed another one after that.
Or if you have all the other kids
totally went down like a tangent with number 2. Yeah. But I guess my other piece of advice is what we say a lot in this podcast is get through it. Yeah. Those middle of the night feeds and middle of the night pumping, it's not going to last forever. It's a very, very, in the grand scheme of things, a very, very short stage of motherhood. And it does get better and it does get easier. And if it helps at all when you wake up at 3 a.m., remember that you're not alone. And there are women all over the world that are awake doing exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. And I know this could possibly play into another question, but if you're able to get your partner involved, if you're feeling so overwhelmed with these nightly ups and downs, please communicate. Please get them involved. It's very easy to get them involved. I think if you are, say, pumping and could possibly put a pump bottle of milk or whatever in at one of those feeds where you could grab a little bit of extra sleep.
Absolutely.
And if not, there are definitely ways that they could help you get the baby, change baby, just support you in general.
I think what I've learned also over the last 9 years of parenting is that the way that our family does things is not necessarily going to be the best way for another family to do something. Yep. So my sister and brother-in-law, from the day the baby comes home, they take every other night and I think she pumps for the first couple of months, whatever, each to their own. But literally that is a steadfast rule in their house. Every other night, they get, the husband gets up or the wife gets up, and that's what works for their family. And I think as a society, we need to respect that because not every woman is going to come in with the same situation during the day and the same privileges and the same desire to want to do what you just said with the twins. And that's okay.
And that's what I was going to say. Believe me, it was hard to go in. And I remember meeting and Laurel came in and she had...
Who's your IBCLC?
Yeah. And she had a gal in training. And obviously I'd seen her for multiple kids. And I'm like, this is what I want to do, but also this is what I need to do. I have 4 other children who also need me.
Absolutely.
And they were amazing. And the fact that I knew, I'm like, this helped me find a game plan. Yeah. Because this is what I want and need to happen. And it was amazing. So, but you can't sit back and say, oh my gosh, everybody else is saying I really need to feed them or
it's all on me.
On demand, or it's all on me, or I shouldn't be using a pump, or you really need to just be confident in what you need and want for you and your family and know that it's all going to be fine. they are the happiest little 5-year-olds, like,
Absolutely.
ever.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, I think different decisions that you make are going to lead you down different paths of, different hurdles you have to come across. And I think that that's where really gathering that information in the beginning, and, if you do want to exclusively pump, learn what that means, learn what that's going to look like, at month 3 or 4, and how often the washing of the pump parts is, and like how, how are you going to pump in the car, different things, and really learning what does that look like if you want to breastfeed one night, but then you want your partner to take the next night. Like, what does that look like in terms of your supply? I can tell you right now, you're going to have to wake up regardless that second night and pump.
Yeah.
So, there are different things in it that like you can put together what you think is this like perfect situation for your family, but without really truly learning the science behind breastfeeding, it's going to be a little bit hard to do that. So really, really start with step 1, which is understanding how breastfeeding works, and then put together a situation that works for you and your family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Question 3. What are some ways to handle overproduction of milk supply?
Yeah. And like we just, it was kind of piggybacking on what I just said. And this is what we talked about before too, is that you've got to realize that everything that you do in terms of anything other than feeding on demand and having your baby next to you at all times, which is really not realistic for a large section of population, especially in the United States, that's not given maternity leave or, proper support after birth, can lead to underproduction. It can lead to overproduction. And overproduction is a question that we get probably not quite as much as underproduction, or the fear of underproduction, which I should say. But, you really get back to supply and demand. There are women who make a lot more milk than their baby needs. And we were talking about this earlier. It's really watching what's going to that breast and watching what stimulation the nipples are getting. Are you feeding your baby? And are you also, this is where it's all just so, it just makes me stop, because there's just such a bigger issue going on in the United States. And it's definitely my little passion in life. But are you feeding your baby on demand because you're home for 6 weeks or 8 weeks on maternity leave, but then you also have this stress of how am I going to feed my baby when I'm away from my baby, and suddenly trying to build a freezer stash at the same time? What happens then, Lindy? You start making a ton of milk, because your body thinks that you either have twins, or your body thinks that your baby is just eating constantly. So then you get uncomfortable, and then you get stuck with the idea of, well, hold on, the baby's sleeping and isn't hungry, but my breasts are full and I need to remove that milk. Because I don't want to get mastitis or something like that. So I'm going to pump. And then you just start the whole cycle over again. But it's like, why did the pumping begin in the first place? The pumping began in the first place because we're adding some sort of stress, in my opinion, to women's lives that doesn't necessarily need to be there if we were to fix society in general. But that's a long process.
I know. We could go on forever on that.
But I think we need to be careful. We were talking earlier about Hakas. I think that they're fantastic. For those of you who don't know, Haka is just a single piece of silicone kind of pump thing that you can suction onto your breast that you're not feeding on. So when the letdown occurs on the one that you are, the extra milk flows into the Haka. Now, it's probably less nipple stimulation than a pump, but that nipple's still getting stimulated by being sucked into the Haka. It's nice to collect that letdown, because for me, I know those first few weeks while my supply is getting regulated, I do lose some of that milk. It drains into your.
So this is where I was like thinking on that. And I remember whenever I would nurse, I always just, like, I didn't let it just come out into the pad. I literally just stopped the flow. Like, this is like pre-Haka, right?
It's probably not great for clogged ducts, but
Yeah, but I don't know. I just somehow
underwire bras, and instead Lindy's just sticking her thumb up there and pushing the milk back in.
I just put my finger there so it wouldn't come out. But Like I just
Note to self, probably not the best advice we've ever given on the podcast.
no,
but
probably not. But I don't know. I never really got in.
I would just grab a burp cloth or
I never
something
really got any
and
like
just
clogged stuff there.
Yeah.
I really only dealt with some clogged stuff is when the pump was involved.
Yeah.
But yeah, but going to that is like, yes, no babies kind of sucking and stimulating a nipple, but it still goes back to what comes out you're going to produce.
Absolutely.
So if you're like, oh my gosh, I got another like 2.5 ounces in the haka, well, that's another 2.5 ounces you're going to start producing extra.
Absolutely.
So,
sometimes a way to get the oversupply out, which is probably my biggest piece of advice that I give people who reach out immediately after birth when they do feel engorged, is really truly learn how to stimulate that milk or get that milk out of your breast by hand expressing. Hand expressing is a lot less nipple stimulation, and it's a lot more just kind of milking the milk out of your breast without really stimulating that nipple and creating more oxytocin. And what the secret to it is, you want to do it to comfort. So you don't want to do it to the point where you're removing so much milk that it looks like a feeding. You're removing an amount of milk for you to feel more comfortable. It's great to do it in the shower because the heat and the water in the shower is going to help release that milk without a whole lot of nipple stimulation. If you don't feel like getting up and going to the shower, you also can make kind of a tub of warm water, have your partner give you that, and just kind of lean over into it and soak your breasts, and just it really almost comes out naturally then as well. So that's a way to do it without really stimulating the nipple in terms of the oxytocin production, which then turns into, more milk production. So.
Okay. Next question.
Yep.
Remedies for sore nipples.
Oh, I don't know. This is one of those things like, do you use something? Do you not use something? Do you get dependent on something? What is okay for the baby to ingest? I haven't used anything since the first baby. I probably could have a couple of times over the years. Coconut oil, if you need just a simple lubricant, can sometimes work. I know you've used Jack Newman's in the past, which isn't terrible. It's what my midwife recommends. But we're not doctors. We're not IBCLCs. So it depends on what you need for those sore nipples. I begin with just taking your shirt off, taking your bra off, but then again, not letting them dry out as well. If you're not catching, this is where it all gets kind of complicated, but not in an overwhelming way. I mean, if you're not catching that extra milk and you are keeping your bra up on one side and it does get moist and it does get wet in there, it's a breeding ground for yeast, for bacteria, for everything. So really trying to lay in those first couple weeks is really important, to the point where if you do need to be topless or you do need to be just in a lounge bra with a super soft cotton or something on it, really treating it like you would any other part of your body that is warm and moist and is getting a lot of activity. And I really, really do not like the word moist, but there was no way to avoid it in that situation. And I said it 3 times in 4 minutes. But you have any other advice? Did you have nipple issues? It's hard for me to call them issues because...
Yeah, I think you just need to watch it with the pump.
Yeah.
Making sure if you are pumping that you have the right parts, the right sizes. Mm-hmm. They are cleaned properly and all that. Make sure that pump pressure is not too high. I mean, you can very easily damage.
And here's the deal. Something happened.
Nipples.
I feel like society-wise, I think it was really good with the Affordable Care Act when a breast pump was, given to everybody with insurance. But somehow it made everybody think that they need a breast pump.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because even I, in my multiple child run a lactation company AMA-CLC, suddenly thought I needed a pump all the time too. Not actual pump, but I felt better with a pump around because maybe it meant that I didn't have to, if something happened or I were to get sick or something like that, I could pump for my baby. there's really no need unless you have some sort of situation or you've talked to your care provider about it or you've talked to your IBCLC about it to start pumping immediately when your baby's born. But there are so many people that reach out to us and say, I have my pump packed for the hospital and da 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 da. Like the best thing that you can do in those hours and those days after the baby's born, especially while you're still in the hospital, is put that baby on the breast.
Yep.
And I think it's wonderful that women are getting free breast pumps, but I think we need to ask, why are we pumping? Are we pumping to build a stash? Are we pumping because we feel a little bit less responsibility that we're the only one that can feed our babies? All great reasons to pump. But biologically, we need to be careful that we're not creating overproduction or we're not creating so much nipple stimulation that we are getting sore or we are getting situations. And then, bottom line with nipple soreness is make sure that latch is good. Make sure the latch has been looked at. Check for lip tie and tongue ties, which is a whole nother podcast as well. So,
yeah. Okay. A partner's perspective, how they can be helpful in the breastfeeding process.
Do you want to take this one?
This is a tough one, at least for me, because I struggled with multiple kids. Wasn't really sure how to communicate my needs, what I needed. But I think it is so, so important to have that support. And I'm not even just talking physical support, just having an open mind to knowing what your partner is going through. They're going through something that honestly they may not even be able to explain to you. Support in the form of words, support in the form of, yes, the physical help. I think is all just so, so important. But I think it's going to come down to, once again, everybody's situation is different. And to really, really try to communicate openly and honestly and listen.
It's hard,
just,
though.
it's other than that, it's so, so difficult.
We've talked a lot over the last week as my pregnancy hormones have increased, just about the weight of certain things in motherhood and our kids' nutrition, whether they be right out of the womb or whether they be 9 years old with a higher BMI, which has been my thing that I've been hung up on for a week now with my kids. There's such a weight that falls on the mother. And it's so hard because it's so hard to communicate that back. And it starts at infancy. It starts at that day that baby comes out and you're responsible for keeping it alive. And you add additional children, you add the weight of whatever is happening with work, with the household, with anything. And you suddenly have to try and communicate how you can get help from your partner. And it's hard. We've talked about different things over the years. Lindy and I have talked about just like Post-it notes on the mirror. Like maybe when you don't have the words, but it's been a really, really long night and you just need to know you're doing a good job. Scribble a Post-it note and leave it on the mirror. Tell them in male-female relationships, a lot of times males need to be told very directly what they need to be done. Even now, 9 years into parenting and getting ready to have our 6th child, there are times where my husband needs to know very directly, hey, I need you to change the baby. The diapers are here. Very, very directed things of like what you need.
Yeah.
But it's hard because you have to find the confidence to say that. Plus you have to somehow find the confidence that you're doing the best thing for your family. And it's all just hard.
Yeah. All while battling kind of that mom guilt and just all of it. But I do wish that there were these conversations and we had the knowledge, like an experience to have them before, because bringing a kid into any sort of relationship, it flips it like completely upside down. Like no matter how kind of secure in communication or you are, it is such a big change that I do wish you're able to talk about it before. Like what do you, and as you're pregnant, like how do you see the weeks after kind of going? What kind of support do you need? How can we work as a team? And even into the ongoing months. And kind of if you have any expectations, like discuss them. Discuss any sort of worries or concerns, but communicate.
And here's the deal, especially with your first baby, you might not know what those are. We do a pretty lousy job at setting women up for reality after they have a baby. But the best thing that I can say is that really, really, truly try and tap into those feelings as much as you can and communicate them. I mean, if you're up in the middle of the night feeding the baby and your husband's next to you snoring and you feel rage and you feel angry, try and remember that the next morning and try and have a conversation and say, hey, this is happening. This is how it's making me feel. There might not be anything you can do about it, but at least just even expressing those feelings, I think, gets you somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's tough though, especially those first few weeks. And I'm going to go back to exactly what I said about the overnight feedings. For most women, it does get better and it does get easier. The hormones regulate. The breastfeeding relationship gets stronger. It gets easier. And it's literally just greeting each day as it comes and knowing that the sun's going to come up the next day. And even like literally 6 kids in, I can tell you in 2 months when the sun sets and I know that it's me and that baby for the whole night, there are going to be moments where I love the silence and the darkness and that connection, and it's just me and him, and it's going to be wonderful. But then there are going to be moments where the sun starts to set at 6 or 7 p.m. and I'm anxious about what the night's going to hold because it's just going to be me and him, and am I going to get any sleep? So that stuff doesn't go away, but it does get easier as the baby gets older.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. How to entertain a toddler while breastfeeding an infant.
I don't know. I've done a whole lot of things. I had one that didn't stop breastfeeding, so I tandemed my first 2, and it was pretty much the only way we survived because he would nurse pretty much when the baby nursed, and it was the only way to get him to like not be jumping off the couch or throwing things across the room. Involve your partner if your partner's around. Involve older siblings if you have them with the toddlers. Create a basket if you can in those days before you have the baby, you know, those busy, nervous, when is this baby going to come days, you know, coloring books, activities that they haven't seen before. It will get easier. I feel like that's my answer to everything. It gets easier, but like as that baby has better head control, learns how to latch better, you're going to be able to have your other hand, especially if you're wearing Latched mama clothing. You're going to be able to have your other hand to be able to entertain them, to be able to help them, to be able to kind of multitask. But in those first couple of weeks, try and find those activities. I don't know. You know, there's articles where like you see these people who are like feeding their brand new baby and reading their toddler a story at the same time. But like, it's almost like when I used to see pictures of people traveling the world and then I went to India myself or I went to Thailand myself. And there are certain things like the smells of the open air sewer and like the 110-degree weather and just like the stuff that like literally you can't read in a story. So you're seeing this beautiful picture of this woman breastfeeding her baby while she's reading a book to her toddler without taking into consideration at all the hormones that are released when you breastfeed and the fact that the toddler is all over the place at the same time that this sweet little perfect little baby is right here who don't want to get hit in the head. It's just hard because I feel like we set these expectations as that's what it's going to look like. It's not what it's going to look like probably for most people.
And I mean, honestly, for me, aside from a snack or a TV show, honestly, what I really just learned is to lower my expectations.
100%.
You know, I get these questions, well, I'm having like my third and like, but when I need to feed the baby, like, how am I going to, like, Johnny wants me to wipe him and like, Susie wants me to play a game with him, but like, how do I do all 3 at the same time? And I'm like, you don't. Like, somebody waits.
Yep.
Like 100%. Somebody waits. You look at them and see what the priority is. It's probably going to be that newborn baby. And the others wait. And it's okay. And it's okay if they wait. And it's okay if they cry. And it's okay if they yell at you. Like, it is okay because you're only one person. And you just got to slowly work through those things. And you can't 100%. Stress over trying to do everything at the same time. Because you can't.
You will break yourself.
Yeah.
Like it just won't work.
Yeah. And it's okay. It's okay for those kids to just realize that. And you might even find them start to do it for themselves.
I was about ready to say that. Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
That's something Lindy and I have learned in big family life is that, you know, sometimes you know when they really need you. And then sometimes they can absolutely do it themselves.
Yeah.
They just have to figure it out.
Yeah.
So
or most of the time I say, I can help you, but I can only help you in 10 minutes. And then they can choose whether they want to wait and they usually just go figure it out themselves, which is nice.
Absolutely.
But take a deep breath. The stress doesn't help.
Agreed.
So, okay. We have one more. Family judgment. How can you help older generations or non-supportive family to understand breastfeeding?
Do it in front of them and just keep doing it. That was my solution.
Pretty much.
You know, for those of you who don't know the story behind Latch Mama, I mean, lactation was not something that was like super talked about or done in my family. I'm one of 3 and my mom didn't breastfeed my sister and my brother. Literally Latch Mama just became like the clothing line became the revenue to support a community and to support moms in the postpartum experience. So for my family, this was all very, very new. Not only my extended breastfeeding and my home birthing, but the idea now that their daughter runs a company that basically puts Facebook ads up all over the place of women with their breasts out. So it's been an adjustment, I think, for my family. I'm just trying to think back to like 9 years ago. I mean, I remember sitting at my parents' house and my dad being like, "So are you going to do that forever?" I mean, I think Nathan was like 2 and he's like, "So do you have a plan to stop? Like does he really need that anymore?" And it's comments like that we hear all of the time in the group. And it's literally just coming back to the fact that we support you and other people need to support you to doing what's best for you and your family. It's not hard.
Yeah.
But you're going to get people in your ear and you're going to get people who say your baby's too old for that, or you shouldn't be doing that in public, or hi honey, why don't you cover up? Or hey, I don't really think that's great that you do it in front of, you know, Uncle Tim. I think you need to go, you know, back to the bedroom. Or hey, I've set up this really, really nice place for you to nurse back here. Yeah, no. I mean, it's so hard. I remember when we first started the company, we started in like October, and I didn't realize that happened a lot, which was very naive of me. Like I knew that women weren't always embraced to nurse in public, but the amount of emails I got that first holiday season from women who suddenly, with our clothing, which wasn't great then, but it was still our clothing. Great. It was wonderful. But they were able to participate in holiday activities without feeling like they had to leave that situation because they felt covered and they felt confident. Literally made me realize that like we 100% had something as a company, as a mission, as a voice. Like we had a captive audience because they were literally women who were getting up from under, like watching their kids open Christmas presents under the Christmas tree because they had extended family there, and they were going to the guest room to feed their babies and missing these magical family moments. And I mean, we weren't selling a lot of clothes then, but I would say 10, 12 emails from women who said that their holidays were completely different.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean it's awesome, but it's not. You know, I mean it's great that we're giving clothes, but you shouldn't need clothes. Like you should be able to pull your shirt up or do whatever you need to do to feed your baby where you want to feed your baby.
No, that's true.
But I don't know. I mean, it's like anything in life. You listen, maybe you don't validate, you educate a little bit, and you know, draw the line in the sand and say, this is what's best for my family. And you be confident, be confident in it.
Yeah.
And know
it
that
might
you
just take a bit of time to feel that confidence in yourself. Because I know, learning and helping teach that little one how to breastfeed, and you're trying to figure it out too. Like it is difficult, and you might want to go and have some privacy, but as soon as you're ready, and if you want to be nurse wherever you want to nurse, like be confident in yourself and just go for it and do it.
And Absolutely. And that's a great point.
You
Like
know?
to say, like, if you do want privacy,
Yeah.
then that's
You
what's
do
best
you.
for your family.
Yeah.
You do you 100%.
Yeah.
But if these comments are getting to you, and if these comments are interfering with what you feel is best for your relationship with your baby or what's best for your family, is just know that the support is there. The education is there. Proof sources work great anytime you're trying to quote unquote sell anybody on anything. But at the end of the day, you don't have to sell them on anything. It's your life and it's your baby.
Yeah.
And your breasts are made to provide milk and sustenance to your little one.
Yes.
So cool. This was
Love
fun. I love to geek out. We don't talk about breastfeeding that often, but are we done?
I missed something. But well, I was just gonna say, like, kind of like the older generations or non-sweater family. Also, if you have like other siblings at home, like I love, like my kids know what I do for work and who I
100%.
work with,
Yeah.
and it's so great to have like my oldest son is 13 and 11, and like I have a boob pillow, and like now he's like, yeah, but mom, they look like really realistic. He's like, I've seen the graphics. He's like, but those, they have marks on them. I'm like, oh, like stretch marks, like,
Yeah.
and he's like, mom, I know what they're made for. But like, it's really cool to like
Absolutely.
educate that
Yeah.
those younger kids too, and like, you know,
Yeah.
so they know why they're created and what they're for.
Yeah.
So it's not just like
And there's
older
a
generation.
really, really good Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood episode about breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And if you guys go backwards, it hasn't always been this way. But if you
Yeah.
go backwards and find some of the really, really good stuff that's out there, that's well done on why mammals drink mother's milk. There's some great things. And I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to showing the Mr. Rogers Neighborhood. That's what it was called, right? To the older generation. I'm just show it to kids. Show it to old people.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. I think Big Bird nurses on the Sesame Street episode too. Just drop all those links. Text them to the grandparents.
Yeah.
But cool. All right, guys.
right.
Stay tuned for the rest of the month.
Yeah.
Great stuff to come with our big World Breastfeeding Week sale at the end of the month. But yeah, we're excited. It's fun to talk about breastfeeding.
Yes.
It's good. Thanks,
All
guys.
right. Bye.